Folks, a lot was hiding in plain sight this episode. We're going to get into it in just a moment. I'm Dan Casey, and this is Sagas of Sundry, Quests and Answers. We're going to talk about the latest episode of Goblin Mode in just a moment, but first, let me introduce my amazing cast.
I'm Danielle Radford.
Amy Vorpahl.
Jason Nguyen.
Hey, Ross Bryant.
And folks, we have so much to talk about, but first, I do need to remind you, this is going to be full spoilers, so if you haven't seen the latest episode of Goblin Mode yet, go back, listen to it, watch it, whatever you do, but, proceed at your own peril. Okay, with that out of the way, wow, we're,
Wow is right.
we're dead.
Wow.
Whoa, Tippy's dead.
Tippy's dead.
We're dead inside, or maybe outside, depending on how you look at
I
it.
think the first place I want to start this is we've got Ross Bryant on the show.
Hey.
Ross, holy cow. What has it been like playing the alter version of Fibs?
A total blast. I really only had you gave me some information about what this character was, but I really didn't have an idea until I saw it brought to life. So just sitting across the room. But yeah, that is great fun.
It was so masterful the way you wove in like weird philosophy. I can't stress enough like how much I was just like, it's gonna be weird. Like maybe lean into weird.
You said lean into weird. So,
It felt very fitting because Fibs is a character who's like deep in the pursuit of knowledge, and if they've been here for a long time, clearly Phil Varell would be increasingly ponderous. So it played fantastically for me.
What was going through y'all's head when I described like literally who I'm sure you knew were
Just
copies of yourself?
At first, like shock, joy, then oh no, because I realized it was about to happen.
Yep. That's like one. Because the only way that I could express it with myself is like every time you start singing, the only thing I could think of like is how much you hate hearing the sound of your own voice. And so that's why every time like there's a mention of the singing business is always like, yeah, that's great. Because it's like, oh, right, that's me. Oh, and I hate me, or like hearing like me do that. And so yeah, just like having that outside mirror like thrown up. And seeing it, and then getting to see live Ronnie, and getting a little bit of that going back for those just kind of reminding folks who'd seen the earlier episodes, and then for us who wasn't here, when we were escaping the lair, there was a goblin statue with a circlet on it. And
a dwarf
statue with a circlet on it, and Tippy had
my first kiss there.
idea that maybe it was an alive statue that had been turned to stone, and True Love's kiss would wake it up.
I asked if it had been Medusa, and you're like, oh, I should kiss it.
The other thing that happened in that, I remember distinctly, because y'all were like, Ronnie, is this dwarf you? Do you remember that? And Ronnie's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I had a feeling.
And it wound up being true.
We had another callback to episode 1 and/or 2, I believe, in the form of Maxwell.
Oh my God.
Amy, a character I never thought we'd get to hear.
I didn't think you'd do it.
Well, I know, if you remember, Jason painted him as problematic.
Oh, he's from a different time, is what Jason said.
He's from a different time.
He was a Maxwell apologist to you guys, and then it was just like, okay, good, well, thank goodness he's dead, and I won't have to ever be that character. And then I thought the ethereal realm. You did pocket him, you brought him back with you. So.
And it makes so much sense, like especially we got to see a flashback of Tippy's and the way that he was with like his dad being a douche, and like this like absence of that, dad-like figure. Of course, Tippy is like, I'm gonna go and impress the problematic ooze, and replace his crappy dad with this crappy ooze.
Just keeps having relationships with these emotionally withholding father figures.
That's all I care about.
Tippy, you really need to work on yourself.
I know, I'm working on it, but I'm dead.
Oh no!
We'll work on that.
I mean, I want to just like round of applause for both Ross and all of you guys for like just how like I was in it. Like I was in it. You came in and you guessed it, but like it felt like because you were being Fibs, it felt like we were playing with you like the whole time.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
And
I knew it was a tall ask. Like I knew
it was so good.
I knew when I knew that Ross was coming on, I was like, well, I've got a pretty tall order for him, but I can't. Like, there's nothing more fun to me than seeing. Like we've had. I mean, like. Busy had a really strong moment the last episode. So did Tippy, and I was like, what if we give this weird moment. It's not, to literally fibs and have like a professional improviser go nuts on this character.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
I know it was a tall order, but you crushed it. I'm so happy.
You set the table so well for as like weird and complicated and surreal as this is to get dropped into.
Okay, Ross, we're going to the ethereal realm. Everything you know about fantasy doesn't exist here.
Yeah.
Memories are balls, okay?
Memories is balls, plane is goo.
That's really all you need to know.
And the skin is goo, and weather is goo, and the ground is goo, and your thoughts are goo. Ready, go.
What a moment between
Oh
you
my
two
God.
when you guys when we learned like how they died. That was wild.
So let me tell you about that. Ross, when I knew you were coming on, I was like, it's time for me to be self-indulgent. I'm going to do an improv scene with Ross Bryant. And y'all are going to watch it.
That's why we were just trying to catch your guys' scene. We're like, wait, get the scene.
I just need one traumatic memory to get started.
But I knew I have these flashbacks. I've written them from before we even started episode 1 of what I imagined, which thank you to you two for giving me full reign to do whatever I wanted with this. I knew I didn't want it to be romantic. But I was like, well, what could it be? And then I knew in the ethereal realm, where it is a land of spirits and memories, that I wanted it to be a massive, regardless of all the lore that we've experienced before, we have real answers. And then you were able to make decisions on your own. But the best way to do that is I felt, I don't know if this was always the case, but yeah, when I knew Ross was coming on, I was like, well, why don't we play it out? And since it actually isn't Fibs and Busy, like it technically is Filvrel and Berignius, then why don't I give myself a little present?
Yeah.
Well, it's cool for us because as the characters, we don't remember this, and we're learning it for the first time.
That's right.
And it's just like really thrilling to see that play out because it is like an echo of what you might have imagined.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Did you have any
fantastic job, by the way.
Oh,
Y'all
thanks.
nailed that. Scene was
was
so good. Again, there was one of those
fun.
moments I had where I'm like, oh, right, I'm in this. I'm in this show.
Right,
I should
right.
remember I'm in this TV show.
I did want your character to be an extension of the dungeon master. Like there's not, you know what I mean? And that's really tricky to be like, you're kind of an NPC, but also kind of a player that has agency at the moment.
I thought you did it I felt so comfortable.
Oh, good.
But it is that thing of like in the home game when like my friend from out of town is going to be here on Saturday. Can he like come in and play like this character?
Someone who's very important, by the way.
You just felt very embraced and taken care of.
Okay, good. What was
great.
it like for y'all? Did y'all have any inkling that you were connected in that way?
I knew, obviously we both knew that we were like skellies. I was wondering if, because we'd done so much joking about like, no one knows what Unzug looks like no one's seen, the Wizard of Ungs. So I had like this moment where I was thinking that was going to be like what that was. But then when you, like this thing about running away and being chased and like that's how you deal with like problems, like we've spoke about with like he became an adventurer, but also it's the running away. That was when it started to like hit that maybe that those were like a connected, the connected thing, like the running and the chasing. And then of course, we got to see more of Busy's ambition, the fact that, it's culturally expected for her to do a certain role, but that isn't what she wants to do. And of course, being demoted is like her nightmare. Absolute nightmare. I'm, at one point I might ask Flesh Busy if I can see her clipboard. We'll see. I kept being like, when can I see the clipboard though? I want to see that clipboard.
Amazing.
What was it like for you?
It was, I had an inkling that we might be connected. Mostly it was during Busy's most recent flashback prior to this episode. And I was like, okay, I feel like our paths are going to intersect somehow because we're both having these sort of shocking out-of-body flashbacks. And it really hit home when I felt like I might have been onto something when I asked earlier in the episode that, oh, is it going to be about how you guys died?
Yeah.
And I was like, because that's the biggest question of Phibbs's life, or his unlife. So it was very satisfying because I don't think I would have put it together like that. I love that it spans decades, this like game of cat and mouse.
The weird inspiration for that comes from Minority Report.
Love that movie.
I was going to ask if it was
Fabulous movie.
This Is How You Lose the Time War, because it reminded me of that a little bit.
Oh, interesting. Just the idea that this guy is going to be responsible for something bad,
Yeah.
which means he's got to go.
Yeah.
But also, why? Like this is a fun, job to do, and without him, there's not, Busy's not challenged at all.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to process because I was paying attention, but at a certain point I was just like so enwrapped in the scene I stopped taking notes, but I'm going to have to go back and write down a bunch of notes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what they mentioned was very important if I go back and look at all the lore we've built up so far.
Oh yeah, a lot of lore. Oh my god.
Just coming in as an outsider who's engaging with this story for the first time, just seeing all the little rhyming motifs of how people are defined by like the trauma of the childhood.
Yeah.
These people are finding out and negotiating this story from their past that they're unearthing, and how bad memories come at you when you're not looking for them, that they ambush you, that it's not something that you can kind of seek to process, that emotions are chaotic and they'll hit you when you least expect them in this kind of like Proust eating the Madeleine kind of way. And so yeah, it's very cool how we're telling this sort of meta story about memory affecting the present, and are you trapped by it, or can you?
That's
can
one
you
of the
overcome
things
it?
that I love about this game, Dungeons and Dragons, or just role-playing games in general. It's like the number one question you always want to ask a role player is, "Are you okay?" You decided these things on some level, so it rings true for this too. That every single one of you has experienced some real stuff with your character.
I did also at the same time, like, speaking of meta, I liked the when Phil Varell's like, is that all this takes? We could have just had a Trekley conversation about our friendship. Why? I hate that this is working.
love that we did that.
I love that we did that.
Love.
So gross. But then also, I love it. Like, there's a big part of me that actually loves that Tippy was the one who like really hit it, because that is Tippy's character.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't gonna be this thing happening without him, even.
It's like there's no. I honestly didn't think that would be the case, because I almost threw it in as a bit like, well, I just got hit by this orb. Surely standing there doing nothing isn't going to bring this thing down, and then it did, and then we got to have a little. love
that
chat.
was
funny bit. Funny bit, Jason.
To be fair, Occam's Razor does sound like a D&D spell, so
Yeah, when I had that moment where I was like, no, I was like, it's not love.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I was like, no.
No, you're
That's
dungeon
great.
master.
That's
no, you're
great.
dungeon master.
Yeah.
that's true.
It makes so much sense, because if we're going through, obviously, we joke, Tippy has really, like, so much of his search has been just for, like, love in various different forms,
Right.
whether it comes from your horrible dad, a problematic ooze, or a possibly Medusa statue. Like, Tippy is looking for that connection and for that, like, love, in, again, whether platonic or polycule.
Yeah. Or polycule.
No, but Tippy doesn't want to join the poly.
No, he doesn't. He does not want to join the poly. There's a polycule, by the way.
Yeah. And by the way,
Was that in your
I
notes too?
bet we did. It wasn't of our making. Iffy Wadiway came in and
If
established
you that shocking.
there was a polycule, which is amazing. I know we're about to wrap up, but one last thing. What did you, for Tippy learning about that Picara? I mean, I know this is meta.
Yeah.
But like, what was it like for you, Jason, to see Picara actually caring about Tippy?
I think it was, I had the same feeling like after I died in the last episode and was listening to everybody talk. I was like, I care about that. I was touched that everybody cares so much about this little goblin, and Picara, tomato. It's good that his attempts aren't lost on her, and that she feels maybe some attraction or being drawn to him, and I hope it works out. That's all I'll say.
Crazy kid.
Well, we'll find out what works out and how we get worked over when we go from self-love to self-loathing on the next episode of Goblin Mode, because we're about to throw down with ourselves, and make sure you tune in to find out exactly how that plays out on Geek Sundry or wherever fine podcasts are served. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.